and I don't want to downsize. You know, we've spent so many years building up to a size of company where I really enjoy it, we make good money.
In the high-stakes world of gold mining, Parker Schnabel made a daring bet, a $15 million gamble on a stretch of land at Dominion Creek. With a target of 10,000 ounces of gold, the pressure was immense. After barely scraping by in the previous season with only 3,000 ounces against his goal, Parker knew he had to go bigger this time. Facing frozen ground, constant mechanical breakdowns, and a series of setbacks, his team fought to keep the dream alive. Could this high-risk investment hit the jackpot, or would Parker's ambition lead him straight into disaster? Parker Schnabel, ambitious gamble. A new season, a new claim, and the biggest gamble of Parker Schnabel's career. Gold Rush Season 15 isn't just about striking it rich. It's about survival, about pushing the limits of what's possible, about taking a leap so massive that failure is not an option. For Parker, this season is more than just mining. It's an all-or-nothing bet. A $15 million investment in Dominion Creek, a place that holds the potential for life-changing wealth or financial ruin. This is not just another claim. This is the biggest land purchase Parker has ever made, and with it comes a gold target, unlike anything before, 10,000 ounces. The number alone is staggering. A goal that surpasses all his past seasons. A goal that could set a new record in Gold Rush history. But big numbers bring big pressure. For our mine site, we're in a position where we really are under the gun to get a lot of work done, and we have a real hard timeline to get these projects done in the time we've got, Parker explains. So this season, we have no real room for error. Since we bought Dominion, we had this huge upfront purchase, and now there's a lot of pressure to execute that well. Easier said than done. The ground at Dominion Creek holds untapped riches, but those riches won't come easy. The gold is buried deep, locked under the layers of frozen permafrost, hidden under terrain that will take thousands of hours and millions of dollars to strip away. And time is against them. The mining season is brutal and unforgiving. The Alaskan wilderness doesn't wait for anyone. Every day lost is hundreds of thousands of dollars slipping away. Every miscalculation a step closer to disaster. The weight of it all is evident in Parker's every move. His crew sees it. They feel it. They know what's at stake. This isn't just a job. It's a test of endurance, a race against nature itself. $15 million on the line. No second chances. No room for hesitation. To meet this goal, Parker must push harder than ever before. The machines will have to work around the clock, the wash plants will need to run at maximum efficiency, and every single ounce of pay dirt has to be worth the effort. There's no time for setbacks. Every bucket of dirt, every shift, every single decision must lead toward that 10,000 ounce target. Parker has chased the dream for years. It's what keeps him coming back, season after season. But this time it's different. This time the stakes are higher than they've ever been. He looks out at the vast stretch of land, at the untouched dirt hiding its secrets below. And he knows the truth. To take home millions in gold, you have to work hard. He's no stranger to hard work. He's built his reputation on it. But Dominion Creek is unlike anything he's ever tackled before. The land is remote, the conditions extreme, and the weight of the investment is looming over him like a storm waiting to break. And then there's the fever, the gold fever. But gold fever can be a dangerous thing. It drives men to greatness, but it also drives them to ruin. The question is, will Parker's biggest gamble lead him to the jackpot of a lifetime? Or will it become the most expensive mistake of his career? The start of such an ambitious goal was already a jackpot in itself, but the road to success is rarely smooth, and Parker's path would be no exception. From brutal equipment failures to risky terrain, from unexpected gold-rich pay dirt to crushing financial setbacks, his journey has already been filled with highs and lows. So did Parker's million-dollar bet start paying off? Or has Dominion Creek proven to be more of a curse than a gold mine? Let's take a look at what he's faced so far. The tough start to the season. Gold mining is never easy, but for Parker Schnabel, Season 15 has proven to be one of his toughest starts yet. From the moment he set foot on Dominion Creek, the weight of his 10,000-ounce target hung over him like a storm cloud. And as the season began, it became painfully clear. This would be a battle. Parker's ambition was clear: This was going to be the biggest year of his career. But ambition alone wouldn't be enough to pull 10,000 ounces from the ground. The plan, a long cut, prepped at the end of last season. This was Parker's best shot at hitting his target, and he knew it. But mining is never that simple. As the crew scrambled to get their operation running, the first signs of trouble emerged. Mud. That's all that came up in the first pay dirt test. No gold. Just thick, wet, useless mud. Parker's frustration was instant. He had bet everything on this claim, and the first test had come up empty. For a moment, the fear was real. Had he made the worst decision of his career? Mitch and Tyson were just as shaken. The long cut had been prepared for months. So why was there no gold in sight? With every bucket of dirt that passed through the wash plant without results, tension grew. Time was slipping away, and Parker knew it. The first cleanup yielded only 5.6 ounces of gold, a shockingly low amount for such a high investment operation. The numbers didn't lie. If this pace continued, the season would be over before it even began. Just as Parker tried to shake off the disappointment of the first cleanup, here comes a new nightmare: a catastrophic mechanical failure. Parker's plan to mine the long cut had already hit a roadblock when the frozen ground refused to thaw, stalling progress. Desperate to keep things moving, he devised an extreme solution: digging an 8,000-foot ditch around the cut to drain water and accelerate the thawing process. It was a massive undertaking, but Parker had no choice. Time was the enemy, and every second counted. Then disaster struck. Mitch was operating a 480 excavator, a critical machine in their operation when the unthinkable happened. The swing drive exploded, metal cracked, hydraulics failed, and one of Parker's most important machines was dead in the water. The cost? Anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 in unexpected repairs. But the real price was time. With the machine down, the digging stopped. And with the digging stopped, the gold stopped too. For Parker, this was more than just an equipment failure. It was a direct hit to his entire operation. The numbers weren't adding up. After weeks of work, Parker had managed to recover just 5.6 ounces of gold. By the time the season rolled around, things were already on the brink. But just when Parker thought his luck couldn't get any worse, another nightmare unfolded. The wash plant, rock sand, was finally operational, and the crew pushed to get pay dirt moving. But almost immediately, the water tray failed. The runoff was not catching properly. Instead, the rushing water was eroding the pad beneath the plant, threatening to destabilize the entire operation. If the wash plant had gone down now, everything Parker had built would have come crashing down with it. The team scrambled to react, quickly repositioning a 30-foot water tray and digging a new ditch to redirect the runoff. It was a temporary fix, but before they could breathe a sigh of relief, a new crisis emerged. Sticks and debris clogged the suction basket. Thick mud choked the water system, making it impossible to keep the plant running. And then the final blow. A tire exploded, the result of an operator accidentally hitting Roxanne's radio station. It was one thing after another, a series of failures that drained both time and morale. When the crew finally managed to push through and weigh in their first proper cleanup of the season, the result was sobering: 30.8 ounces of gold, a fraction of what Parker needed. For a miner aiming to pull 10,000 ounces, this was unacceptable. With only 3 episodes in, Parker was already fighting against frozen ground, failing equipment, and underwhelming gold totals. But this was just the beginning. The delays and mounting frustration were only one part of the battle. Ahead, Parker would face even bigger hurdles: financial pressures, unexpected claim expansions, and gold discoveries that could change everything. The stakes were only getting higher. But could Parker turn his luck around before it was too late? Mid-season struggles. The early months of Parker Schnabel's ambitious campaign to hit 10,000 ounces of gold seemed filled with endless challenges. At the start of the season, the excitement of starting with Dominion Creek felt like a new chapter, one that would define his career. But as the days dragged on, the obstacles began to pile up one after another, slowing down his momentum and threatening to derail his bold plans. The first major setback came when Parker and his team encountered a mysterious loss of pay layer in the long cut, the very section of land on which Parker had staked everything. Even with their best efforts, The pay layer just wasn't where it should have been. And as Mitch raised concerns that it had sunk too deep, perhaps over 20 feet, they had to make a crucial decision. The gold was there, but the ground was frozen solid, making it difficult to access. Parker knew he had to act fast or risk losing even more time and money. With his patience running thin, Parker turned to a solution that would cost him dearly: a sonic drill to measure the depth of the pay layer. $20,000 per day for the drill, but it was his best shot. After what seemed like an eternity, the results finally brought some hope. The gold lay just 15 feet above bedrock, still within reach. This discovery gave the crew a burst of renewed energy, and they quickly got back to work, determined to make up for lost time. But just as they began to regroup, another disaster struck. The super conveyor, which Parker had hoped would expedite the process, broke down. The damage was severe. Snap drive shafts, cracked sprockets, and a disengaged chain rendered the system completely useless for 6 long hours. The clock was ticking, and the repairs had to be done in record time to avoid losing another valuable day. The pressure mounted, but despite the setbacks, the team managed to recover 849 ounces of gold in just 3 weeks from a new ditch they had started, a clear indication that Parker's aggressive approach was starting to pay off. But it still wasn't enough to offset the time lost and the money spent on broken equipment. As Parker's struggles continued, the environmental conditions only made matters worse. The frozen ground slowed everything down to a crawl. The thawing process, vital for extracting the pay dirt, stalled. Mitch, trying to speed up the thawing, used a dozer, but the frozen ground cracked the equipment support braces, weakening the machine's structural integrity. The land Parker had so carefully selected seemed to fight him every step of the way, pushing him closer to a breaking point. Tyson Lee faced his own challenge with a 480 excavator. The ground, as hard as rock, shredded the excavator's bucket, forcing the team to halt once again. The mounting delays were driving Parker to the edge. As the forecast predicted another 10 days of cold weather, the costs surged, and Parker knew the operation was spiraling out of control. With little choice, Parker made the hard decision to halt Sling entirely for 3 weeks, a move that left him with no gold to show for the time. The dismal tally, just 135 ounces of gold after so much work, was far from the goal Parker had set for himself. Even after all his efforts, they barely managed to cover the operating costs. The harsh reality was sinking in. The more they worked, the deeper the hole seemed to get. But Parker wasn't one to back down easily. The setbacks only strengthened his resolve. He wasn't ready to give up, not yet. Parker knew he had to dig even deeper, both literally and figuratively, to meet his target. But as the team pushed forward, the weather presented yet another challenge. Heavy rains threatened to flood the mining sites, a serious danger to both the equipment and the crew's safety. The mounting environmental and operational challenges raised some serious questions. Could Parker turn this season around, or would he succumb to the pressure of the unforgiving landscape? With machinery failing, permafrost hindering progress, and the constant threat of adverse weather, Parker's gamble seemed to be hanging by a thread. The stakes were incredibly high, and every new challenge only brought more weight to the burden Parker carried. As the season progressed, Parker's ability to adapt and strategize was put to the test more than ever. Would he find a way to surpass his failures? Parker's strategic investments. With the ambitious goal of 10,000 ounces in mind, he had already poured $2.5 million into the operation, hoping that his investment would pay off by the end of the season. But halfway through, the results remained disappointing, with the gold yield far behind expectations. Over $1 million had already been spent, but the recovery seemed nowhere near sufficient. The strain was visible. Each passing day saw Parker's frustration grow. But he wasn't one to let setbacks break him. His strategy now needed an aggressive adjustment if he hoped to salvage the season. With the pressure mounting, he made a bold decision, deploying a third wash plant. Bob, the newest addition to his growing fleet, was meant to be the boost Parker needed. It was no small feat. Moving a wash plant across 12 miles of rugged terrain to Ken and Stewart's was a logistical nightmare. The crew, led by Tyson Lee and Mike Tucker, encountered countless obstacles during the journey, but their determination never wavered. The plant had to get there. It had to work. When Bob finally arrived and was set up, It seemed like the breakthrough Parker had been waiting for. 3 wash plants running in tandem should have increased the chances of hitting his gold targets. Yet, as with most things at Dominion Creek, nothing went according to plan. A torn belt halted operations soon after Bob got running, and the team scrambled to repair it, understanding that every minute of downtime meant more money down the drain. Despite the repairs, the gold yield still fell short. Big Red produced 58.85 ounces, Roxanne delivered 185.65 ounces, and Bob, though a promising addition, contributed just 58.45 ounces. The total for the season stood at 1,107 ounces, and Parker couldn't hide his disappointment. It was embarrassing. His team had worked tirelessly, but the numbers still didn't add up to the target he'd set. Over halfway through the season, Parker found himself in a familiar position, still fighting to get out of his money pit. But the recent success of operations at Indian River, where the team had managed to recover 650 ounces in just 1 week, gave him a glimmer of hope. Still, he was only a fifth of the way to his 10,000-ounce goal, and time was running out. Parker knew something had to change. It was time for another big move, one that could potentially change the course of the entire season. Rounding up his core team, Chris Dumit, Mitch Blaschke, and Tyson Lee, Parker dropped a bombshell. He had purchased 2 neighboring claims, Gold Run and Sulphur Creek, for $2.5 million. It was a massive financial gamble, but Parker believed in the potential of these new lands. The historical significance of the region was undeniable. Some of the richest gold reserves in history had been found in these areas since the early days of the Klondike Gold Rush, and Parker believed he could tap into that wealth. "We'll see if it's congratulations or condolences," Parker said, leaving his crew uncertain of what lay ahead. With this new acquisition in hand, Parker's next move was to shift resources in wash plants. Bob, which had previously been used at Ken and Stewart's location, would now be moved to Sulphur Creek, a 25-mile trek, the longest plant move Parker had ever attempted. Once again, the crew faced mechanical breakdowns as a feed lip bar on the wash plant broke. Repairs were quick, though, and the crew was determined to meet Parker's expectations. The clock was ticking, and every delay would cost them. Once everything was operational again, the results began to trickle in. The crew's work at Dominion Creek yielded 217.7 ounces from the long cut, and Big Red produced 77.1 ounces from the bridge cut. Even with the setbacks, the numbers weren't all bad, but Bob, now up and running at Sulphur Creek, turned out to be the game-changer Parker had hoped for. In just 2 days, Bob delivered 141.65 ounces, a significant contribution to the season's total. Despite all the challenges, Parker's gamble on the new claims seemed to be paying off. By the end of the week, the total gold haul reached 2,880 ounces, an increase of $1,300,000 in value, breathing new life into the operation. The risk, it seemed, might finally pay off. Would Parker's investments in these new claims and his gamble on expanding his operation give him the edge he needed to reach his goal? The road ahead. As the season drew nearer to its end, the pressure continued to mount for Parker Schnabel. With only 3,000 ounces of gold in the bank and 10,000 ounces as his ambitious target, the clock was ticking faster than ever. His investment had been bold, pushing him to the edge of both his finances and his limits. The $2.5 million acquisition of the Sulphur Creek claim was a gamble that could either make or break his season, and with it, his legacy. Parker's crew had already endured a roller coaster ride of mechanical failures, frozen ground, and unpredictable weather, but there was a growing sense that the tide might finally be turning. Yet despite the challenges, Parker's investment showed signs of returning results. But the question remained, would this be enough to hit his 10,000-ounce goal, or would the obstacles prove insurmountable? Looking back on the season, it was clear that Parker had made some of the boldest decisions of his career. From his early failures at Dominion Creek to his daring purchase of neighboring claims, he had navigated a path full of risks and rewards. With only a small fraction of his goal achieved, the race against time had never been more real. The season wasn't over yet, but Parker knew that each passing day brought him closer to the finish line, and the outcome was still uncertain. Would his investments at Sulphur Creek and the addition of a third wash plant be enough to carry him to the jackpot? Or would the setbacks that had dogged him all season, equipment malfunctions, harsh weather, financial strain, hold him back from what could be one of his most successful seasons yet? For Parker, the gold lay just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. His resilience, determination, and risk-taking had brought him this far, but as the season drew to a close, it remained unclear whether he could pull it all together to reach his target. With the stakes higher than ever, this season's final stretch would determine whether Parker would claim his jackpot or fall short of his ambitious dreams. Could the momentum of his recent discoveries and the growing strength of his operation carry him across the finish line? Time was running out. Parker had put everything on the line, but now the true test awaited. Would his gamble pay off, or would the gold slip through his fingers just short of his goal? Parker Schnabel's $15 million bet at Dominion Creek showed what real gold mining is all about, where new tech meets hard work, and every scoop of dirt could lead to either a jackpot or a complete loss. His crew pushed through a lot of tough times, testing their limits every day. Would you take a chance like that for gold? Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to subscribe, because Parker's journey is not over yet, and the big reveal of his season total is still to come.